Salutations, my friends, and thank you for tuning in to another edition of Factions of Freedom. I'm your host, Noisera, Freedom Faction, whichever one you prefer, and I've titled this episode, Trumping Liberty for Security. It's not an addendum to trumping in the technocracy, but it's definitely looking at the current state of affairs. This is one of the episodes I was skeptical of doing, simply because I'm no military strategist, I'm no economist, by any means, but I'm just a common person looking at all these types of things, looking at what I would consider Operation Ordo Ab Chao, causing confusion, looking at what's going on in our world. As I said before, I'm no military strategist, so what I basically feel like we're seeing right now is the slow implementation of them trying to trade what very little liberties we do have left in the name of security. I do believe that we are moving more towards a world war. It's not a question of we won't, yes or no. It's a question of when and why and what exactly was the reason. Now, I know that sounds strange, and I don't. This is one of the reasons as to why I was having such a hesitation towards putting this episode on. I don't want to fear-monger to the people that are listening. I don't want to put out information where it seems like I'm fear-mongering. I don't want to warmonger. I don't want to spread propaganda. And that's what I intend to do later on, is have a few more people on to talk about what's happening as far as the war game scene, what's happening as far as the political scene, the socio-political scene. So there's a lot of things that we have to talk about. The false flag in Fresno, the Facebook killer, the military-industrial complex, Nikola Tesla, and Donald Trump's connection. And that's kind of what we went over in trumping in the technocracy. Although I didn't know that yet, which is weird. And how the next arms race is robots, the Battle of Berkeley even, and all kinds of different things. There's really a lot of different things I wanted to try to jam pack in here to kind of give you guys the example of where we're going and what exactly that means. This necessarily won't be one of our more spiritual episodes, but I can assure you this will be one of the ones where where we really do look at these types of things critically. But before we jump into everything, all updates, May 1st is whenever we are launching the Series 01 line. And if anything, if you guys are listening right now, send me an email. I will send you the coupon codes. Or if anything, I think the free shipping code is Freedom Fashion, and Gear Game is the 25% off. And right now we're running a sale, a week-long sale, starting on 4/20, ending April 27th. And then we'll be releasing the Series 01 line on the 1st of May. So basically, you guys have your choice of which coupon code you would like, what you would like to choose for the items that are in there. And basically, everything that you purchase, whenever you guys do purchase something from the Series 01 line, email me, or I'll see it, and I'll be able to email you the exclusive content member feed, because I really want you guys to pay attention to that. And this is one of the specials that we're running. This is just something new that we're trying. So definitely pay attention to that. As always, make sure you're paying attention to Paradox Radio. That's where we're putting the mini casts, the one that we did earlier this week. Opening the gates, the Unchained Brain, and things like that, where I even answered some of your guys' questions, and if anything, this is why we're going to start putting together a call-in episode where I hang out with you guys and, you ask questions, or we have certain topics, this, that, and the third. It'll be a great time, really great fun. On top of that, and if you just want the behind the scenes on a lot of cool things, guys, really sign up for the exclusive membership, okay? Sign up on Patreon. We have ranges from $4.99, that's 16 cents a day, to $20 a day, or $20 a month, and that really does help us. That really does keep us on the air. That helps us secure what we're doing, basically. But I don't want to keep plugging for all this type of stuff. But with that being said, let's jump right into the episode. So as I said before, we're going to be talking about all these crazy things that seem to spiral out from the beginning, really. Because, I started 3 weeks ago whenever Trump launched those missiles into Syria. I don't think really people understood what was happening. That's, if you ask me, retrospective action. And I feel like that's one of the things we have to try to come to grips with Trump. He will not tell people what he's doing. Or at least he keeps it real real tight-lipped, you see. And so that leaves us to kind of decipher what the moves are being made. The way I put it to people is like, how were we going to fix ISIS? How were we going to deal with this North Korea situation? How were we going to discount all these Russian accusations, you see? And so there's all kinds of different things that had to be done, but the best thing to do was to strike Syria. And what I'm starting to learn more so, if anything, he's shooting some of those fifth column U.S.-backed Syrian rebels, basically ISIS. And this is why we're going to be talking about ISIS as well. Some of the things that we see taking place with them is in France, as well as, you know, in the Middle East, because all of these things, they definitely coincide. But basically what I'm trying to talk about with Trump, with this retrospective action and these false flags, because it was clear that that Syrian chemical attack was a false flag. It was very clear that Syrian chemical attack was false flag. Immediately people started discounting it. You know, they were like, well, where are these people's hazmat suits? You know, where are the corrosive burns? These are actors, you know, people. it was way too easy, you know. And then for Syria, for the Syrian president Bashar al-Assad to come out and say basically the same thing, that it's an entire fabrication, that just shows you, all right, well, who did this? And if you ask me, I definitely have been telling people, or at least I think, that it is just that. It's ISIS. It's these U.S. Syrian-backed rebels. These people, basically, that Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama orchestrated. All right, and if anything, that's something that we'll get into later on, is how actual documents came out from the WikiLeaks server, where from WikiLeaks that is now being classified as a terrorist organization by the Trump administration. They're trying to arrest Julian Assange instead of giving him not triage, but instead of giving him a pass. Basically, they're not doing that. What they're doing instead is they're trying to arrest him. But basically, what we're seeing take place, even with some of the information that's being put out, as I said before, you know, finding out that Hillary Clinton said that Al-Qaeda is on their side, you know, that just shows you like what we're dealing with. You see, so that if you ask me, you know, and I know I'm kind of ranting coming right in, but I feel like that's what that was. Whenever Trump was attacking that base in Syria, you know, I could definitely be wrong, but you know, could it have been some of the rebels, some of the people, some of Al-Qaeda that Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton helped create and orchestrate? You see, right there. Let's just get this out of the way right now. And this is actually an article put up by the Free Thought Project. It says Al-Qaeda is on our side. Could you imagine that? Could you imagine? Just think about that for a second. This is an article on Hillary Clinton and whoever else she's communicating with, where she knows. She knows that she's killing American soldiers. And this is just this is the sad truth of what we're dealing with today. You know, the sad truth that people don't really want to look at, the idea that we could have people that are this corrupt doing these types of things. But this is an article from the Free Thought Project. I put it up April 13th. It's by Matt Augerist. It says, Al-Qaeda is on our side in Syria. Emails show Clinton knew U.S. worked with terrorists. Oh, so she knew. She knew that we were working with terrorists and still decided to do nothing about it. Great. The article goes on to say that Jacob Jeremiah Sullivan is an American policymaker and a senior policy advisor to Hillary Clinton's 2016 election campaign, who's been seemingly attached to Clinton's hip for nearly a decade. Sullivan was widely rumored to be a frontrunner for the position of U.S. National Security Advisor under a Hillary Clinton administration before she lost to Donald Trump in the 2016 presidential election. He was also the deputy assistant to U.S. President Barack Obama and the National Security Advisor to U.S. Vice President Joe Biden. He also served as the Director of Policy Planning at the U.S. Department of State and as a Deputy Chief of Staff to U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. He was Deputy Policy Director for Hillary Clinton's 2008 presidential primary campaign and a member of the debate preparation team for Obama's general election campaign. For all intents and purposes, it is safe to say that Sullivan is a well-connected DC insider. Now, according to some recently discovered emails from WikiLeaks, he knew that the U.S. was working alongside Al-Qaeda and in Syria by proxy. So then, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, while it may come as no surprise to those who have been paying attention that the U.S. has been arming and supporting terrorists in Syria, this email, confirming Clinton's knowledge of it prior to the Obama's, quote, red line in 2013, is nothing short of a bombshell. While the United States admittedly gave supplies to the rebels as early as 2011, these supplies were all non-lethal, meaning they came in the form of food, trucks, and other rations. However, though covert lines, the CIA quickly began to dump cash, weapons, and eventually heavy artillery into the hands of the moderate rebels over the course of the next few years. And this is where we get the creation of ISIS. This is where ISIS comes in. This is what we're talking about. It starts as something like that. You know, if you give them bread, if you give them food, you have everything they need. They go out there and do the rest of the work. They're not going to bite the hand that feeds them. You see, this is Al Qaeda. This is what Al Qaeda and ISIS are the same thing. They're talking about joining forces. These are just two separate organizations underneath the same thing. Same ISIS, ISIL, Al Qaeda. They're all the same thing, and now they're just coming together. That's what we have to look at. Okay. The article goes on to say that what this email shows is that the U.S. knew Al Qaeda leader al-Zawahiri called on Muslims in Turkey and in the Middle East to aid the rebels in the Free Syrian Army. From this day forward, the lines between who Al Qaeda or the rebels actually were became heavily blurred. That's what I'm talking about. What rebels? I understand these are people trying to take back their country, and we're over there destabilizing it. I understand that, but at the same time, we're funding this chaos. We're funding this insanity. We're funding this destabilization campaign. As I said before, whether it was Al Qaeda or rebels, the lines became heavily blurred. Heavily. And you don't think that stopped them? That definitely did not stop their operations. Let me get back into this article. It says, but according to the email, the State Department did not care as they knew Al Qaeda was on their side. As the email states, this is an unclassified U.S. Department of State case number F 2014-20439, document number C05789138, date 10/30/2015. Al-Zawahiri urges Muslim support from the opposition. It says that the Al Qaeda leader Al-Zawahiri called on Muslims in Turkey and the Middle East to aid rebel forces in their fight against supporters of Syrian President Assad. In an internet video, Al-Zawahiri also urged the Syrian people not only to rely on the Turkey or the United States for assistance. Once this wire went out to multiple departments in the form of an ops letter, apparently there have been some original concerns about Al Qaeda joining the ranks of the U.S. supported rebels. And this is, if anything, you know, one of the articles we'll get into later on is how, ironically enough, apparently some fighter jets took down some U.S.-backed Syrian fighter jets, and I'll talk about that later on. But this is why, you know, some people have had some uneasy terms about it. You know, you've actually had the Air Force come out and say they don't want to be Syria's. They don't want to be ISIS's Air Force, you see, because we're actually having documents come out. We're having whistleblowers come out who don't want to support what ISIS is doing. Yes, we can try to train them. Yes, we can try to feed them. Yes, we can try to arm them. But it's ultimately up to them to take their country back. And this is why we're having such confusion whenever it comes to this Syrian crisis. You see, because we're going to bomb Syria. We're bombing Syria because Syria is bombing its own citizens. You see, that's crazy talk. That's crazy talk. That's just double speech for saying, well, we're going to basically go in there and just boil out whatever's going on in there. Okay, this article goes on to say that which were being used by the American deep state to destabilize Syria on behalf of special interests. Yeah, exactly. Exactly what I was trying to say. However, Sullivan quickly replied to his master, Hillary Clinton, to let her know that Al Qaeda, quote, is on our side in Syria. This email adds credence to the claims of Representative Tulsi Gabbard, who was forced to take action to stop the U.S.-ISIS collusion in Syria by proposing a bill to, quote, stop arming the terrorists. Last month, Gabbard called on President Trump to end the regime change in Syria. And that's actually what I talked about in one of our mini-casts, how that's exactly what we were seeing. Regime change. We're seeing regime change, false flags, and all these other things. And that's what we're seeing here as well. I wanted to, if anything, set the stage so that I'm already well aware of ISIS, Al-Qaeda, ISIL, whatever, however you want to look at it. We have people, these fifth column ISIS members, however you want to look at them, over here, not orchestrating, but manipulating and being a catalyst, so to speak, to the American people. Not even to the American people, to the world, okay, being a cancer upon the world. They're starting here. We fed them, we clothed them, we gave them weapons, we trained them. This is our problem. And so now we've got to boil out this situation. And if anything, this would be a good time for me to try to find that article for you guys where it actually shows that indeed we accidentally shot down U.S.-backed fighters in Syria. I know. That's how they have to put it. And when we look at this type of stuff, I really think people have to understand that this isn't one-dimensional chess, okay? What we're talking about is literally fixing this ISIS issue with the false flags, sending messages to Korea, trying to impress China, doing things on like a geopolitical scale. Everything is changing. That's basically what it gets down to. Everything is changing, and all of it sounds weird, but it's taken me 3 weeks, or at least just 3 weeks of following the news to still kind of get like a view of what's going on. Okay, and I put this up April 13th. It's from the Daily Sheeple, and it says, breaking, the U.S. airstrike accidentally, and they put that in quotes, accidentally killed 18 U.S.-backed fighters in Syria. And this is an article written by Lily Dane, and it's from Reuters as well. It says an airstrike on Tuesday by a U.S.-led coalition fighting Islamic State mistakenly killed 18 members of the Syrian Democratic Forces south of the city of Tabaka, Syria, the Pentagon said on Thursday. More details from U.S. Central Command said that the strike was requested by the partnered forces who had identified the target location as an ISIS fighting position. The target location was actually a forward Syrian Democratic fighting position. The coalition's deepest condolences go out to the members of the SDF and their families. The coalition is in close contact with our SDF partners who have expressed a strong desire to remain focused on the fight against ISIS despite this tragic incident. This is all we know right now, and if additional information is released, we will update accordingly. Well, I'll tell you this. This is the update. This is the update, if you ask me. This is what we're talking about after the fact. The fact that once we found out, and I think if you ask me again, this is another reason why Trump dropped the Moab. You see, and I know, people are going to say this stuff is crazy. This doesn't make any sense. He's a warmonger. I definitely would have to agree with you on so many different levels. But I'll tell you what, this is what's going on. We're slowly moving into war. Either slowly moving into war or trying to scrape by the skin of our teeth. Either way, it doesn't really look good, because what we're seeing right now, and this is what I believe, the fifth column, the ISIS, these agents provocateurs, I believe these people are literally here to act as the anti-catalysts of change. That's what Antifa is, in so many different ways here. A lot of these surprise sort of spring up groups that just happen that seem like they come out of nowhere overnight, and then they have all kinds of popularity. ISIS, all kinds of popularity, all kinds of finances, all kinds of this, that, and the third. Those are things that we need to look out for. What I'm trying to say is they're going to use things like ISIS to continue to destabilize. If anything, that was one of Barack Obama's missions or achievements, is to create this fifth column, this ISIS, this separate organization that can affect change on a massive scale. I mean, that's why they also have the attacks going on in France. This is why Venezuela is saying that we're taking place in their coup. This is why so many different things are happening around the world, because that's what they needed. They needed to create a separate entity that they could take around, a boogeyman that they could take around anywhere, and just place there, saying, "Oh, here's the problem." And so what we have now happening, and you can call this the deep state if you would like. You can call this the Illuminati. You can call this the fifth column. You can call this who you would like. We're still trying to put a face onto it. But basically what we're talking about is the army of the Illuminati, the soldiers of the Illuminati, the foot soldiers. I mean, the police are the jackboots of the state, but these are the soldiers of the Illuminati, so to speak. Soldiers of the Zionist army, you see. And this is why they're always decked in black. You've got to look out for some of these commonalities. But I'm going to play for you guys this clip of Donald Trump agreeing, indeed. And this is what I think is strange. He didn't come out and say, with the Syrian chemical false flag attack, he didn't say that he confirmed that. He didn't say anything. He didn't own up to it. But whenever he dropped his Moab, he definitely agreed that he was proud of it. He took credit for it and everything. So that's just another thing to look out for. But here is Donald Trump talking about his Moab. Nope. It is not. It's not going to play. That's great. That is great. That is great. Or, give us a second, and we will try to. Basically, what it is he. Whenever he dropped the bomb, and a lot, if you ask me, a lot of what he says in relation to some of his military actions, it is very scary. It is very unsettling, because he literally talks about these types of things just so passé. And if anything, this is what I want to come back and talk about, is his connections to the military-industrial complex, and how he just keeps saying, this ammunition. The things that were here, they're old. We had to get rid of them. We had to get something new. We had to make room for new. We had to make room for new arms that were coming our way. And if you ask me, I feel like this is an alluding towards them trying to create a more advanced army. We talk about future soldiers, robots, super soldiers, genetically engineering people, things of this nature. I feel like that's where we're definitely moving towards. But eventually what they have to do is get rid of the arms that they have already. You see, this is why so many different things are happening on so many different levels. I mean, it gets real weird talking about it, definitely. But whenever you understand what their overall goal is, because they are trying to take us to war, as I've said before time and time again, war is good for them. But whenever you understand that that's what they're trying to do, indeed, that's their mission, so to speak, you understand that they will do what it takes. They will do these retrospective actions, these things that we consider fourth dimensional chess or ninth dimensional chess. You see, but here is Donald Trump talking about his Moab, and then we're going to go to a break.
Very, very proud of the people. Really another successful job. We're very, very proud of our military. Just like we're proud of the folks in this room, we are so proud of our military, and it was another successful event.
Did you authorize it, sir?
Everybody knows exactly what happened, so... And what I do is I authorize my military. We have the greatest military in the world, and they've done a job as usual. So we have given them total authorization, and that's what they're doing. And frankly, that's why they've been so successful lately. If you look at what's happened over the last 8 weeks and compare that really to what's happened over the last 8 years, you'll see there's a tremendous difference, So we have incredible leaders in the military, and we have incredible military, and we are very proud of them, and this was another very, very successful mission. Thank you very much.
And we are back. Yes, we are back talking more so about trading liberty for security, our future, what's going on right now, all the things that you see taking place, all this weird fourth dimensional chess that we keep talking about. As he said before in his clip, talking about how, as you can see, we've done more in 8 weeks instead of the 8 years as the previous administration. Exactly, Donald Trump. What we're talking about is how the military-industrial complex has taken control of the White House. And I have another article for you guys as well after this that talks about how, indeed, Trump is getting his marching orders from CEOs. Yes, the CEOs of Walmart, of Fox News, of JP Morgan, all kinds of different things. So what we're talking about is how, indeed, they are trying to take us to war. The Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Zionists, all these different things, despite our efforts. And this is why you see so many people within the American public saying that we don't want to go to war. If anything, I'll talk about this later as well, how all these false flags are happening here, how they're trying to take us to war. And this is why we have things like the Battle of Berkeley, the Fresno shooting, the Facebook killer. They're trying to stoke they're trying to stoke us. They're trying to keep us agitated. This has been already a presidency riddled with fiascos, riddled with insanity. Okay, our country, we are basically under civil war, in a civil war mindset. We're bickering about everything, and we're trying to go to war with another country. We're trying to go to war over something simple. Let me get into this article. It's from the Freedom Outpost. I put this up just the other day, April 19th. And if you're listening, yes, today is 420. The Astonishing Reinvention of Donald Trump, and this is by Rory Hall. It says, Washingtonians are still puzzling at the speed with which the man who promised to, quote, drain the swamp has come to bask in its approval. In the past 10 days, Mr. Trump has bellied many of the city's worst fears. Having promised to launch a trade war with China, as I've talked about before, I believe we'll be in a trade war with China, an economic war with China, versus a physical confrontation with Russia. And I do believe that we already have agents and provocateurs here in America. That's a whole nother discussion that I think, if anything, it'll get tied into here. But Mr. Trump is rapidly abandoning his protectionist rhetoric. Likewise, having vowed to avoid foreign wars, he has acquired a sudden taste for the Levantine missile launches. And having dismissed NATO as obsolete, Mr. Trump is now singing the alliance's praises. And this is put up by the Financial Times, April 13th, 2017. It was just a matter of time before the deep state got its meat hooks into Trump, and that's what we're talking about. Ultimately, whenever, if you go back and listen to some of the episodes, Americhaos, and some of the other episodes that I had with Lori where we talked about some of the things with Donald Trump, I don't trust him. I don't trust him as far as I can see him, but I don't necessarily believe in the left-right paradigm. I believe it's upon ourselves to take our liberty, to take our freedom, to take our ourselves in ownership. We should not put these types of things that are sacred and divine for us, our sovereign right as human individuals. We should not be putting this off on anybody else. We should not be looking to Donald Trump to save us. And if anything, this is why some of the rhetoric that I have in the minicasts, as well as some of the things that I'm starting to put more so in the feed, are moving more towards saying, prepare yourself, understand yourself more. Don't get caught up in all this craziness, because it's going to happen, but are you prepared for whenever it does happen? And this is why some of our episodes are going to go more towards that theme in the future. But to get back into this article, it says the move to remove Steve Bannon from the National Security Council and replace him with 2 deep state operatives who had been formally removed from the NSC was our signal that the deep state had restored its control of the Oval Office. Shortly after that, the power swap was accomplished. Missiles started flying in Syria in response to false flag gas attacks, and the world's largest non-nuclear bomb was dropped on CIA-built underground tunnels in Afghanistan. Trump has backpedaled on every single, quote, plank in his campaign platform about as quickly as Obama did after he was inaugurated. Trump's geopolitical policies now resemble the same policies endorsed by Hillary Clinton, who is a neocon dressed in drag. While all else fails, start a war. That's exactly what I keep saying. War is good for these people. War is good for the military-industrial complex. That's what they need. As he keeps saying, our armaments are old. They need to be updated. They want to try to get all this stuff out there. And if you ask me, the military-industrial complex, this is another word or a synonym to the technocracy, and I'll try to get into that later. If anything, I'll springboard from this article into how we're talking about how Trump is getting some of his marching orders from some of these CEOs. But the article goes on to say that the opinion ratings of Trump are plunging, along with major portions of the economy. Auto sales are down 10% since the beginning of 2017, and J.P. Morgan, despite beating earnings statements or estimates disclosed, a troubling spike in credit card write-offs, which rose to nearly $1 billion in Q1 retail sales, have now declined 2 months in a row. It's no coincidence that the dismal sales report was released on Good Friday when the market was closed. The original 0.1% gain reported from February was revised down significantly to a decline of 0.3%. Restaurant industry sales have declined from 11 to 12 in the last 12 months in a row over year monthly basis. The economy is being fueled on money printing and credit creation for the better part of 40 years. That artificial stimulation went parabolic in 2009. The tech and the housing bubble has been reinflated, along with every other asset class into an everything bubble. Real weekly earnings have declined 2 months in a row. The consumer is tapped out on two fronts: disposable income and the capacity to take on more debt. Now comes the part where the average household begins to default on debt it's taken on over the last 8 years, hence the big jump in credit write-offs disclosed opaquely by J.P. Morgan last week. Today's Shadow of Truth discusses the role played by the deep state in ushering in the inevitable economic collapse of the United States, which will lead into the implementation of a totalitarian and dystopic political system. I definitely agree. And we talk a lot about this, on the show, how that's what they have to do. They have to collapse the old world order so that they can offer us this new world order. And basically what they're talking about is the implementation of the universal basic income, the technocracy. Yes, they have got to get rid of how we do all of this money so they can directly have access to our accounts, directly have access to our money, directly have the ability to take our money whenever they want, see where our transactions are, know what we buy, know what we sell, and that's it. That's the mark of the beast. That is the implementation of what we're talking about. And I know all this sounds strange, but you have to understand, as I keep saying, war is good for these people. That's what they are trying to do. If they can have more control, because that's how they'll implement martial law, and I'm pretty sure people are able to see that with the police state formula. With these protests and some of these riots, whenever people start getting crazy, that's how they react. They just get MRAPs, they get drones, they get all these other crazy toys, and then they just implement more of their totalitarian control onto us. You see, and that's exactly what they're doing. This is why the episode is called Trumping Liberty for Security. We've got to look at how many different levels they are trying to play here and what this means down the line. So I have this article from Mint Press News, and it says that a new report reveals Trump White House is taking marching orders from CEOs. What do you think that could mean? What do you think that could mean? You see, I did an episode, and I'm not, for the new listeners that tune in every day and haven't, or tune in every week, or tune in every whenever. For the people that are tuning in new, I did an episode called Trumping in the Technocracy, and basically this is basically right whenever he had just gotten elected, everybody was still raw, they thought just because Trump's in the White House we don't have to deal with the Satanist Hillary Clinton, and that's all well and fine, but at the same time I was seeing how things are setting up for Donald Trump to basically implement the technocracy. As I said before, trumping in the technocracy, collapsing the old world order so they can implement this new world order. Things like Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, sustainable development, smart cities, all these different things. They're all coinciding. Why does this have to? Why am I talking about the technocracy whenever we're talking about CEOs? Well, whenever you have people like Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, and even Bill Gates. Ooh. And for the new people listening, I have a villainous hatred towards Bill Gates. I hate that man so much. I really do. Everything he does, to the children, to the people, yeah, I hate that man. We're not going into this, but to stay on the topic, what I'm talking about with the technocracy, with Trump getting his orders from CEOs. He's trading our liberty, our freedoms for a false sense of security, as you see right there with the TSA's invasive pat-down procedure. This child, if you guys haven't seen the clip, he's autistic, and so what they decide to do is, because he has a slight, mental handicap, they decide to pat him down even further. The pat-down takes, well over 2 minutes. Or well over a minute or so. And I know it's thorough, but the way this child is going down, or the way this man is going down on this child, it's very strange. It's very strange. But let me get into this report. It says that a new report reveals that Trump White House is taking marching orders from CEOs, and I know that's what lobbying is. I know we're very well aware of how our country has definitely been sold out. Some people have even talked about the White House being a revolving door, but you have to pay. You have to pay to get in. So let me get into this. And this was put up April 18th. It's from Mint News, and it's by Nadia Prupis. And she says that since his inauguration, President Trump has met with at least 190 corporate executives, not including phone calls with heads of bankers and numerous Wall Street appointees. The watchdog group Public Citizens reported on Monday in a new analysis. And since then, the November election itself, he's met with at least 224, quote, one of every 5 of the corporate executives who meet with the Trump administration within the first 100 days represented the banking or financial sector, a particular focus of Trump's criticism during the campaign. The Public Citizen noted in a write-up of its findings. The group reports comes just days after the Trump administration announced it would not disclose visitors' logs from the White House, Trump Towers, or the president's Mar-a-Lago resort to the public. Let me read that one more time, because I think that's key. And this is what I've talked about as well. We literally have a man passing down information, passing down his judgment, so to speak, from his ivory Trump Tower. He won't disclose some of the contacts, some of the information, because he considers his hotel rooms not offices. But I'm sure that's where he conducts a lot of his business, you see. And so there's a lot of different things that we have to look at. The private-public sector, that's definitely where we're going. The military-industrial complex, that's here. The last bastion that they have to conquer is the public sector, and that's what they're trying to do. So let me read this one more time. The group's report comes just days after the Trump administration announced it would not disclose visitor logs from the White House, Trump Towers, plural, or the president's Mar-a-Lago resort to the public. Okay, with those documents unavailable, Public Citizen developed its analysis via news reports and White House press releases. The gatherings reflect the administration's interest in giving special treatment to corporate sectors such as big pharma, banks, and the automotive industry, among with others, and it's another example of Trump breaking his promise to drain the swamp, as well as other campaign promises, Public Citizen said. Donald Trump has asked America's CEOs for marching orders, and in meeting after meeting, they are happily issuing instructions, said the group's president, Robert Weissman. He says, as best as anyone can decipher what's going on at the White House, the CEOs are in charge right now. And they are predictably advocating their narrow short-term profitability interests, not what's in America's interests. Sheldon Adelson, David Koch, and Carl Lindner III are among the wealthy benefactors that Trump has met with in his first 100 days. He's also entertained J.P. Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon, Andrew Livers of Dow Chemical, Doug McMillon of Walmart, along with 4 separate executives from Fox News. Quote, President Trump not only has betrayed the promise of candidate Trump by failing to break up with special interests and monopoly in Washington, D.C., he has invited the special interests into the White House and asked them for guidance on how to deepen and perpetuate their monopoly. Think about that. Meeting with people like J.P. Morgan, Walmart, Fox News, heads of banking, heads of state. And this is who we're allowing to run our country. Talking about draining the swamp, right? Talk about all these other things. The military-industrial complex taking over the White House, and how, we put Marines in Australia. So for my Australian listeners, I'm sorry for what our president's doing. I'm sorry if we're messing with your chill. We put an unknown number of troops in Mosul, Iraq. An unknown number. They didn't tell us. They just decided to do it. Mike Pence made his surprise visit to North Korea, where he just appeared on the wall, trying to flex. Does anybody else think he looks like Hank Hill's dad? I know we're putting out the meme of Race Bannon from Johnny Quest, but I swear, he looks like, I think his name is Cotton. He looks like Cotton from Hank King of the Hill. They're the same. Old squinty-eyed white guy with really white hair. But he's standing there at the North Korean border, flexing in his bomber jacket, looking off, saber rattling, saying that we are done having strategic patience with North Korea. Sean Spicer talking about how the goal is to destabilize Syria. Think about that. These are the people, these are the CEOs, this is what's going on in our country. And we're deciding to take this out to the world, basically, as sad as it sounds. We're taking this mindset out into the world. We're showing people what's really happening. And I know this stuff sounds, as I said before, I don't want to warmonger, but I definitely see what's going on with our country. I definitely see some of the multilateral plans that they're trying to do, and our country, our people, our citizens, most Americans definitely don't agree with this. I'll tell you that much. Some Americans don't agree with it, but at the same time, some do. That's the truth. Some actually really do agree with what's going on, and that's why we have this civil war forming here in America, due to these things that are taking place. People who don't necessarily agree with our president, but at the same time you have people who are just saying, it's perfectly fine, we just need to trust in him. I would not be doing my job if I didn't question what was happening on a global scale, on a global geopolitical scale, and explaining that which I see. If I was not asking these kinds of questions and saying, why are we bombing these places? Why are we dropping Moabs in Syria on CIA built tunnels? I wouldn't be doing my job, figuring out that maybe those places that they're dropping bombs on, maybe these are some of the ISIS rebels or some of the ISIS bases, Al Qaeda bases. You see. So I'm going to play for you guys this quick clip, and this is Sean Spicer talking about how the goal is to destabilize Syria. You see, and the reason, and I'll get into the reason why we're talking about all these types of things, why we're talking about all these different types of basically war game movements, so to speak, in a second. But here is Sean Spicer saying that the goal is to destabilize Syria.
With him in charge, the other one is saying we need to have him gone. I think that's the point of both. The goal for both of them, the goal for the United States, is twofold. As I've stated, it's one, to make sure that we destabilize Syria, destabilize the conflict there, reduce the threat of ISIS, but then secondly is create the political environment, not just within the Syrian people, but I think you can work with Russia in particular to make sure that they understand that Syria, backed up by Russia's own accounting, should be held accountable for the agreements that it's made with respect to its international agreements on chemical weapons alone.
And can you defeat ISIS with Assad still in power?
ISIS with... yes, sure. But I think that... I think you can defeat ISIS with him in power. I think that, obviously, to your point, it's not like there's a single track that says you have to do. I mean, if we can get both at the same time, or one happens
right after another, that would be great. Yes, it would be great, because then you're able to, kill two birds with one stone. That would definitely be awesome. As Sean Spicer said, the goal is to destabilize Syria, to reduce the threat of ISIS, to work with Russia, and to defeat ISIS with the Assad in power. That's what they say. But you know, we'll see. What they're trying to do is work on regime change. I'm not going to go too far down the path of what's going on in Syria, because I definitely have a few more things I'd like to talk about here in our own country, as well as North Korea and everything else. I spent too much time. But what we're basically talking about here, when we're looking at what's going on in Syria, how we're having like our government go run amok. They're continuing that war in Syria. They want that Syria has no IMF debt. They're very well aware of the petrochemical or the petrodollar situation in America, how America is using oil to finance a lot of their wars, and they don't want that. We also have they have no IMF debt. There's a pipeline that they're trying to build to basically extend some of the oil there. There's a lot of different kinds of things that we have to look at with Syria, and I feel like we have messed that country up so bad. And with wars come refugees, you know, and people have got to understand that this is all tied into the same thing. You know, they are doing things in a multilateral way, as I tried to said before, with them sending out unknown troops to Mosul, sending troops to Australia. Pence doing all this. They're positioning, they're posturing, they're getting ready for war. As I said before in one of our mini casts, the regime change, false flags, and the Syrian chemical attack. And you guys can check that out on our minicast feed, on our Patreon exclusive feed. You know, what we're talking about is regime change. We're talking about how they're trying to profiteer off of war. You know, we're already having the proxy war in Syria. That's why we have to figure out what's going on with Russia. And if anything, this is why Russia's getting angry, because they are deciding that they no longer want to try to play the nice, chivalrous person. That gig was going to play out. Eventually, they were going to get mad. They are mad about this. This is why they were saying, okay, you've impressed your people. No more of that, though. If you do that again, that's why they came up with the red line. If you do that again, we will react. And this is why, again, with China as well, telling us that we can't take out North Korea. I mean, we literally put a SEAL team in North Korea, and we have U.S. intel chiefs saying that they should assassinate Kim Jong-un. They're literally playing out the theme of Seth Rogen's The Interview with James Franco, where that was propaganda. If you ask me, they were trying to kill Kim Jong-un. Now we have China over here talking about how they might cut off oil reserves to North Korea. So basically what we're happening, I don't know whenever North Korea decided to become a problem, but now it is. You know, with their 25 nukes, with their old technology, apparently they have a very high-tech or very well-trained force. I meant to put that video up for you guys. Actually, I think we might have that for you. I'll try to see if I can find it for you. But they have a pretty what seems like a well-trained force. And more of these types of things are happening. Why is it that every other day we're hearing Kim Jong-un talk about attacking America? Maybe because they need another boogeyman. You know, maybe because ISIS has been played out. You know, maybe because people are awakening to other things, and they don't really necessarily see. They don't see North Korea so much as a threat, or they don't see ISIS as much as a threat as North Korea. Who knows? But a lot of what we're basically talking about, if you ask me, the only thing that we're really talking about is wargaming. And this is why I've had such a hesitation doing this type of episode, because when it comes to this type of stuff, you know, I don't want to claim to be an expert. I don't want to claim to know anything. You know, I'm still learning everything as much as you guys, and you can tell they're trying to take us to war. I'm trying to figure out why they're trying to take us to war, and what they want to take us to war over. What's the purpose of it? Why do we have to be the people, or the catalyst? You see, why are they trying to scapegoat us into doing these types of things? These are the questions that I have to ask. You see, because it doesn't make sense. You know, why is North Korea over here saying that they want to put nuclear strikes on America? Is it because they don't have a Rothschild bank as well, that they have to decide to? Well, if anything, you know, that's a whole nother question. That's a whole nother discussion. because they don't have IMF debt and because they don't have a Rothschild bank. Maybe that's why people are trying to kill them. And a lot of what we're talking about here, that's why I wanted to talk about Donald Trump's White House getting marching orders from CEOs. All of this stuff, guys, is emblematic of the New World Order coming into existence, coming into fruition. So I'm going to play for you guys this quick clip of North Korea warning of a nuclear strike on the U.S.
Fiery warning from North Korea to the U.S. on Tuesday, state media calling for, quote, catastrophic consequences in response to any further moves by the United States after an American Navy strike team was sent to waters off the Korean peninsula. Pyongyang went on to say the North is ready for any mode of war desired by Washington.
한약적들이 핵 선제 타격 용어하면서 계속 지쳐낸다면 우리는 쌓이고 쌓인 분노를 폭발시켜 적들의 그 번거지는 물론 미국이라는 땅덩어리를 이 지구상에서 온지도 남지 않게 싹 쓸어버리고 말겠습니다. 죽이자! 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 갑자기 벌일 행동서서는 벌써 이미 전에 조직됐어야 했을 것입니다. 백두산 절제 위인들의 손길하에 자라난 백두산 혁명 강군이 불만.
And that whole training, they basically show you a whole training video. And if you watch the full video, this is put up from Countercurrent News. I put it up April 11th. You guys can definitely go check it out. It's pretty informative stuff. I feel like, you know, we definitely have to know our enemy. This is why we're trying to get our hands around the situation. But basically, you know, they show you all of the people working together. There are even some knife fight videos in there. They're a very well-trained army, which is why, you know, we have got to start training ourselves. We have definitely got to start, you know, getting ourselves ready for any kind of confrontation that will take place. But I also want to play for you guys this other clip of where we have a news anchor talking about how North Korea is preparing a EMP. I think that this is something that we have to look at as well, because this could be a potential grid down situation. Another reason why we archive the information. If they ever take out the internet grid, we have our information backed up. But I feel like this could be another big false flag, or at least a system reset, so to speak, so that they can implement this technocracy that the military industrial complex wants. You know, what will basically take place after an EMP. You know, as I said before, things with Fox News, things with Walmart, things in the financial sector, this, that, and the third. This could be the potential grid down situation that they're looking for. So they'll try to play this multi-level chess and have these types of things take place, and basically use Kim Jong-un as a lighter or a kickstart to everything that is coming on. Sorry, a little bit of a brain fart, but here is the report talking about how North Korea is prepping an EMP.
Now, the United States is stepping up its response to North Korea's growing nuclear missile threats, passing new legislation targeting the regime. This comes as a former head of the CIA has made some really extraordinary claims, saying the North could kill 9 out of 10 Americans if it wanted to, and it might be time for Washington to consider preemptive strikes. Kim Hyo-sun reports.
The United States should be prepared to launch preemptive strikes on Pyongyang, including the use of nuclear weapons if necessary. This is what former CIA Chief James Woolsey said in an op-ed piece in the Hill newspaper, accusing the U.S. media of underestimating the threats posed by the regime. Woolsey, who was director of the CIA during the Clinton administration, warned that if the North uses a warhead-triggered electromagnetic pulse, it could kill 90% of Americans. Listing the diverse scenarios of North Korea delivering nuclear weapons, Woolsey claimed it could attack the U.S. with a missile.
Attacking us with a missile. Attacking us with more of these EMPs, more of these strikes. And as you can see right there, they are training in the video, shooting heavy machine guns, pistols, at American faces, at American targets. And while we have all this going on, we still have false flag operations being conducted in our own country. But what we're going to do, we're taking a quick break, and then we're going to come back and start talking about some of these things that are happening here. Things like the Battle of Berkeley, the Civil War, the destabilization, collapsing of the infrastructure, and so much more. But we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back. And we are back. Yes, we're back. We're still talking about all the other crazy things that we have to deal with. 2017, the fourth month into 2017. Happy 420, guys. And this is what we have to deal with. This is what we have going on. We have trade wars going on with China. We're picking on North Korea. And Russia and Syria are trying to resolve things. And we still have people who are a little bit bitter about that. So while we have all of these other geopolitical issues going on, this world stage scale that we're acting on, we literally also have destabilization campaigns, destabilization acts taking place here in American soil. And I get it, you know, it's fun to hate the system, it's fun to hate the president, it's fun to hate everything, but this is definitely not one of the times to where we need dissent and civil warring mindsets here in America. We don't need that these days. I can tell you that much. We do not need that as far as everything else that we actually need to come together, because we have all these other foreign efforts to try to take us down. And we're seeing the collapse of our own country, the collapse of patriotism, the collapse of understanding, the collapse of our mind. You see here in America. And I always get very curious about some of the people that listen around the world and what it seems like to hear us talk about these types of things and to see our country go through the types of things that it goes through. What do I mean? What is the Facebook killer? What was his scenario? What was his story? Let's hear it.
Suicidal type shit. I'm about to kill some people. Didn't care. I don't know something about me, but it don't matter. You know, people would come to me with their problems. You know, I'm a case manager at Beachbrook. You know, I would deal with people's problems every day. But when it comes to my shit, nobody gives a fuck. It's like I'm always the bad guy. It don't matter what the fuck I do. People always make it out on me. And, you know, this is fucked up, man, because, you know, innocent people about to die today. Hopefully, I'm going to try to kill as many people as I can, be on death row or whatever the case may be, but I just don't give a fuck no more. I'm just, you know, I'm beat, I'm tired, you know. I will say this, though, the people I'm going to kill today is Easter Sunday. It's not my first.
We have insanity going on here in our country. We literally have caseworkers case managers, people who could be victims of MK Ultra, going out there randomly killing people. Whether or not this is a false flag, whether or not this is something of that nature, you know, that's to be left to suspect. But for this man, Steve Stevens, to go out, randomly kill people, randomly kill multiple people, and then to kill himself after checking into a McDonald's to try to get some chicken nuggets, committing suicide after that, for this man, this grown man, to have this many psychological issues, dealing with everything that we have going on, that's unheard of. We have insanity here in our own country. We literally have people killing each other, attacking one another, trying to wish us ill will for no real reason. If you want the truth, there's no real reason as to why these people should have to die. Why why these things go on. Why Robert God Windsor died. Why we have these types of things taking place. You see, could it have been MK Ultra? Could it have been a false flag? Could it have been more of these staged attacks? I mean, they said they tried to find the man. They couldn't find him on Facebook Live. Well, I know what is the geolocation whenever we put it on some of the pictures? What's that about? You can't find him whenever he's on live. You're not tracking his location. I doubt that. Whenever you post on Facebook, it tells you your immediate location. But this is, if anything, a ploy to say get more of the technology, get more of the surveillance state in place. This is more of those advancing things, because a few days later we had actually Mark Zuckerberg come out and talk about the Facebook killing. And then on the flip side, he also talked about how he's creating mind-reading computers and skin hearing interface. All types of strange things, transhumanism agendas, basically. And that's why we have to look at what these things are used for. But let's look at this clip, too, where we also have the Fresno shooting. Okay, and for people who are unfamiliar, this is a guy who basically opens fire at a Catholic church. You know, he screams, Allah Akbar, you know, God is great. And what was crazy is the mainstream media actually spun it because I guess they didn't want him to seem as radical, or they didn't want to say this was what it is. But let's look at this clip. This is the Fresno shooting.
Incidences in the downtown area.
Corey Ali Muhammad allegedly firing 16 shots in less than 2 minutes at 4 different locations, killing 3 white men Tuesday morning.
Yeah, we're going to need to get more units out here.
We just got another call in of 6 shots fired.
Authorities say the 39-year-old first opened fire on a PG&E truck at 10:45 a.m., shooting and killing the passenger. 34-year-old Zachary Randalls, the married father of 2, was a new employee on his first ride-along with the company. The suspect then firing at, but missing, a nearby resident, only to kill 2 more men before police apprehended him.
He made some spontaneous statements. I did it. I shot them.
2 months ago, Muhammad posted this video of a song to YouTube.
Death and destruction, murder and mayhem.
He yelled out, Ali Akbar, as he was seated in the back seat of the patrol car.
Police believe this shooting was a hate crime.
He yelled out, Ali Akbar. Oh my gosh, really? You can't even say it right? Is that how much of a... Is that how much we're hicking? We can't even say Allah Akbar. We have to say, he said Ali Akbar. Sorry, a little bit of a troll there. This is what we're having to deal with here in America. False flag attacks. You know, could he have also been another person underneath MK Ultra? You know, could that have been what we were seeing right there take place? We also have another story that I thought was very strange, because all of these things happened this week. Okay, and so more of these attacks are taking place. You know, whether or not they're psychosis, you know, whether or not they're MK Ultra, whether or not, you know, they're actually Muslim grievances or radicalists or even ISIS, however you would like to put it. More of these types of things are happening here in America, right? And this is what we need to look at. A heavily armed man gives a chilling warning to church members in South Dakota. I know that sounds strange, but all of these things taking place, they're trying to continually destabilize and polarize the population, to make us that much more at each other's throats, to try to stoke us up to get into these civil war mindsets. Ironically enough, just the other week, they talked about giving churches their own police force due to some more of the threats, the radical threats that these people are facing. But let me get into this article. It is from End Times headline, and I put it up April 18th. It says that a Muslim man entered a private gathering of Christians in a hotel ballroom in South Dakota, started cursing and live streaming video on Facebook of the event, and then after he was ushered out, multiple firearms and issued statements the speakers say were a direct threat to their safety. The man, wearing a t-shirt that said, "I'm American, I'm Muslim, I open carry, I conceal carry, and I'm dangerous only if you are stupid," was approached by a security guard and told to leave. Once back in his car, he brandished an arsenal of weapons, including 2 military-style rifles with loaded magazines and 3 handguns, made several threats of, "Be scared, be effing scared, be terrified." Again, it was all live streamed on Facebook while parked in on the conference center parking lot. To the surprise of the conference organizers in Sioux Falls, after reviewing the videos, police chose not to charge the man with any crime. The state's attorney says he's still investigating, but did not see anything criminal in nature on the videos. The Muslim man, Ehab Jabbar, a self-described former resident of Saudi Arabia who works as a server at a local steakhouse in Sioux Falls, was questioned by police and the FBI following his bizarre behavior at the April 9th Christian Worldview Conference. And now, so apparently this wasn't just last week. This took place about 2 weeks ago. So more attacks. Sorry. And now 2 of the speakers at the conference, or two of the speakers at the event, are saying that if the security guard had not noticed Jabbar's strange activity and escorted him out, something bad could have happened to roughly 500 Christians, including women, children, and at least 2 state legislators who were in attendance. It was a ticketed event, but we did not have enough volunteers to be checking everyone coming in throughout the event, said Sehram Hadian, a former Muslim turned Christian pastor and one of the pastors, or one of the speakers. This guy came in after the event started, so the way the hotel was set up, there was just way too many ways to get in. This was a private event, a closed event for Christians, but that's how he got in, because we just didn't have the manpower to be checking anyone. or to be checking everyone. And this is, if anything, one of the reasons as to why they want to give churches their own police force. You know, I think that's a whole nother philosophical debate, a whole nother discussion. It's crazy. It's wild, if you ask me. I definitely don't think that we should be giving churches their own police force. There's a lot of different things that could go wrong with that. Religious police sound very, very scary to me. But at the same time, you know, it could actually help with some of the things. But this is what we have going on. We have more attacks taking place in our country, more destabilization techniques taking place here in our country, and the response is, as I said before, is for them to have more totalitarian efforts, to do more of these types of things, to basically say, oh, well, if you're scared, just give us your freedoms, and then we'll give you a church force, or we'll give you drones, or we'll give you some fake rights, or some momentary rights, so to speak. And so, you know, where else we're seeing this behavior take place, you know, this condemning or this restriction of freedom is whenever people try to have protests or at least celebrations. What is Antifa? What are the anti-fascists? What are these people that are going there with rocks, with M80 grenades, with all kinds of other violent things, expecting to create civil war, expecting to create an air of hostility? And this is not good, because this is our country. We're literally at each other's throats. Whenever the wolves are facing in, we're fighting in our burning house, so to speak. And this is the Patriots Day protest at UC Berkeley, or the Battle of Berkeley. And what you're seeing right now is swaths of people engaging in fights. People literally throwing one another, carrying sticks, beating each other. It's crazy. And we have this is what happens whenever people try to have free speech. This is what happens whenever, you know, people try to openly express themselves. This is crazy. This is crazy. For the people that are listening right now, instead of watching, we're seeing from an aerial view what seems to be like a drone view, all kinds of different violence. They're always dressed in black, these people. You know, it's always black flags and gasoline. I understand destruction. Just destroy it down. You know, it's crazy to think about, but this is where we're at. This is where we're at in 2017. While we're literally having to fight off of our backs against the New World Order, we're literally being destroyed from within inside. You know, and this is something that we talked about as well. Paid protesters, actors, people of that nature, provocateurs, agents, and these people that infiltrate organizations such as Black Lives Matter, Anonymous even, and just cause all kinds of chaos. But after doing these types of things, look at this. You know, they decided to come out again, the Antifa social justice warriors at the Battle of Berkeley. They said that there will be blood. The left prepares for war after Berkeley beatdown, talking about combat training, better equipment, and guns. Where is all of this training for organization for our own country? Why don't we take them off to? Why don't we take this mindset somewhere else? Why don't we take this mindset to the people that are trying to wish us ill will outside? Why do we have to do these types of things here in our own country? Okay, this article was put up April 18th. It's from the Daily Sheeple, and it's by Max Salvo. It says, last week, Trump supporters and leftist social justice warriors met on the political battlefield in Berkeley, California. Words were exchanged as were punches. And while the alt-right leaders was punched in the face, by all accounts, even the social justice warriors admit that they got a major beatdown. This prompted a Reddit discussion among the left's tolerant resistance movement, with many asking how they can be more effective, can more effectively go to war against anyone who disagrees with their social, political, and economic views. The anti-Trump protesters at the rally were ill-prepared for what they came to, for when they came to Berkeley to confront, and now they're trying to figure out ways to ensure it doesn't happen again. So basically, they got their butt kicked, and they're trying to figure out how they can get better. In short, as predicted, they are turning to militancy and mob action by mobilizing individuals and groups to attend combat training seminars, acquiring better equipment like baseball bats and helmets, and of course, if things go really bad, guns. If you ask me, LARPing, live action role playing. Those people that you saw running around with all those sticks wrapped up in PVC pipe and duct tape and styrofoam. This is it. This is what it means now. It has become trendy to do these types of things, and I think whenever you do this, what you're really doing, this is the problem. Whenever you have people saying, "Oh, stay woke," these people are warring with ourselves. They are creating the civil war that will make it much easier for us to be conquered. Where is this preparation for what's going on across the world? Where is this preparation like we're seeing with North Korea? Where is this preparation that we're seeing in China? Where is this preparation that we're seeing in Russia? And here we're literally destroying ourselves. You see, this is insane. Let me get back into this article. It says, it doesn't help that it's only the far left opposing them, and any Trump supporter can be radicalized far easier than any liberal. I heard we learned from today, as a shocking number of our comrades went in there with absolute no combat training. We need to set up seminars or something of the sort. We also need better equipment. I know the bandana and hoodie look is our trademark, but I saw the right wearing motorcycle helmets and baseball bats. A dude wearing a helmet is going to keep going if he gets punched, or our guys are going down. And though they are, always have been and always will be tolerant and peaceful protesters, many are now discussing arming themselves so they can go head to head with the fascist and racist alt-right. I honestly think that we need a campaign to get more Antifa armed. It seems to be the biggest problem with our resistance. They are mostly armed. Why aren't we? Wow, that's crazy. That is all crazy. That is definitely insanity that we're talking about here, because we're having more of this take place. More of these destabilization techniques take place. More of this fifth column, aka George Soros infiltrators, agents, and provocateurs take place. This is what's going on. While we have China that's sending 150,000 Chinese troops to the North Korean border. We have North Korean soldiers preparing for war. We have Russians going to the North Korean border. We have Russia holding $30 million of Venezuela oil hostage. The U.S. preparing to bomb the Syrian capital of Damascus and blame it on Bashar al-Assad. That's what Vladimir Putin is saying. We have all of these geopolitical things taking place around the world, and we decide to arm up to kill each other. Why aren't we talking about unity? Who is there offering unity? What is happening to our country? What we are seeing is how we are literally legally going insane, slowly going insane. This is why I have to tell people that regardless of all these types of things taking place, regardless of everything that we see, we understand that these protests are redundant, that they're played out, that they're useless, that there's other work to be done, other things to be done. And this is why they're co-opting them now. This is what we're talking about. These are those agents. These are those people who are basically trying to collapse the movement from within inside. And everything that we're talking about right here, all of these things set the stage for them to try to create a perfect dystopian military takeover, as they predicted, as the Pentagon predicted, the urban nightmare that could become America by 2030. This is their plan for martial law, because they want us to destroy ourselves so that they can come in as the authoritarian dictators that they would like to, and take us to war, take us into a place that we can't come back from, take our liberties, and tell us what freedom looks like. And I don't think that sounds advantageous to anyone. I don't think that's good for anyone, because when you're looking at it, that's just more of us trumping our liberty for security, more of us trading both for a false sense of security, as you're seeing with the cops that have a similarity to ISIS, talking about hunting us down. These are the people that are here to protect us. Would you want people that are dressing like with black masks, not revealing their identity, talking about protecting you? And this is what Antifa says they're doing? I think people need to really start and take a look at what's really going on in the world and what this means for us. It's time for us, the people who don't really want to get involved in all of this insanity, to ask the question of, well, what's next? How do we build? How do we do something different? And all I can really say, guys, is contemplate renaissance instead of revolution. Fight conformity with creativity. Don't fall for all of these plans, for all of these agendas that they're showing you. Create something different. Be better. That's all I can really say. However, that's all I really have for you guys. I know I didn't really necessarily get into Nikola Tesla and Donald Trump's connection, you know, and then the next arms race about how we're going to be creating super soldiers and cyborgs and robots and all these other things. But I wanted to set the stage for what's happening here in America as well as around the entire world so people understood what that meant. This is Operation Ordo Ab Chao. If you ask me, we are burning in our own house. They are trying to cause confusion. They are trying to cause all kinds of destabilization techniques to further enslave us, to further indenture us into this system. You see, with their scare tactics. It's the same agenda, just a different person. Same plan, different boss. However, that's all I really have for you guys. What I'll do is, in the exclusive edition of this episode, is I will actually go over those very same ideas, you know, Nikola Tesla and Donald Trump's connection, you know, trumping in the technocracy, and how the next arms race is indeed that, creating robots, super soldiers, and cyborgs, because that is where they are trying to take us. That is the technocracy. Transhumans only exist in the technocracy. But I don't want to rant much more than I already have. As I said before, if you guys have questions, feel free to email me. I'll leave it in the description bar below. Or if you want to leave us a voicemail, you can do so at 843-900-6296. And as always, guys, stay vigilant. Expose lies and share truth. This is Noise Era, Freedom Faction, out.